Major breaking update. A new whistleblower has stepped forward and provided Project Veritas with an email where Google employees directly refer to Jordan Peterson, Prager University, and Ben Shapiro as a certain group from World War II Germany, and using dog whistles. This is direct confirmation, more direct confirmation of employees within Google being biased politically, targeting a group of people, and then going on to say, we should disable the suggestions feature. This email corroborates statements made by the whistleblower yesterday that they were going to be stripping recommendations from certain creators, myself included. I have a lot to say. There's a lot to go through. James O'Keefe's video has been removed by Google. I'm not exaggerating. The Google expose has been taken down by a privacy claim, due to a privacy claim by a third party. What third party? They were Google employees. This is YouTube. I guess you could make the argument fine. As to the statement made yesterday, I'll make some updates. My recommendations, known as suggested views, are down to about 10% of my views less, right? So how do I explain this? My suggested views comprised about 28% of all viewership before May, and now they're around 15 to 17%. They are down. So this could corroborate what the whistleblower yesterday was saying. For those that aren't familiar, he said that my views had gone down dramatically in response to suppression. That's not entirely true. Suggested views made up a very small portion of my views regardless. But now it would seem that yes, my views in suggestions are down, but I'm being recommended in other ways. Okay, so I bring this up specifically because it's important context as we move forward with this conversation. So it's happening. We have confirmation. Probably the most alarming confirmation I think we have is James having his video taken down by YouTube itself. If you challenge or make YouTube look bad, they will take down your content. This video has a staff member, a woman, talking about manipulating U.S. elections, how Google won't respond to Congress. Here's what we need to do. Go to timcast.com/donate. You can donate monthly through PayPal. There's a cryptocurrency option, a physical address. The most important thing you can do right now, share the video if you think I deserve it. YouTube will not recommend me to new people to help me grow. You know what? Fine. I do not believe I have a right to YouTube recommending my content to other people, but we know they are now suppressing people to a certain extent. I want to stress, I am still being recommended in other ways. Recommendation is like a slang term. So that means that homepage recommendations, you'll still see my thumbnails if you choose to click them. That's good. I'm still gaining thousands of new subscribers every day. I do not believe YouTube is trying to destroy my channel outright, but we are seeing them take some kind of action. The action as a whole may be against news channels, and it might not be political. It could be specifically targeting news channels. I've reached out some progressives and I've corroborated some information that leads me to believe the suppression of suggestions may have hit news as a whole. So the point is, if you think I deserve to get views, it's going to be on you to share the video. If you don't think go to Facebook, wherever you want to share them, fine. More importantly than that, I have a podcast. For those that are listening on the podcast, you get it. But for everybody else, it's called the Tim Pool Daily Show. It's on all podcasting platforms, I believe, mostly iTunes, Google, etc. And you can listen to me there, and it is safe and free from YouTube's algorithms. Not perfect. I also will be posting content, minds.com/Timcast. It is very likely this video could be taken down for showing you that initial email. My past video could be taken down. YouTube already took down my video on Pinterest. So let's go through all of the big breaking updates. For one, Ted Cruz today grilled a Google employee on the Veritas report. I don't think it was the right employee, but good on Ted Cruz for stepping up. We also have Congressman Louis Gohmert issuing a statement saying Google should not be immune. They should not be granted federal immunity. They are seeking to manipulate our elections. I will come back and read a statement shortly. Even more worrying, though, is that James O'Keefe published to Vimeo, a YouTube competitor, the link to the report. That appears to have been taken down as well. It seems like we're facing, to use the similar words to James O'Keefe, a watershed moment for journalism. James O'Keefe exposed censorship at Pinterest. They reacted predictably. They reversed the censorship. But then something happened and they decided to double down. And then they just came out with a blanket statement saying they were banning this conservative group. Period. It seems from there has been an emboldening of censorship against conservatives. The initial email I showed you, they have called Jordan Peterson, Prager, Ben Shapiro, a certain faction from World War II, you know the N-word, a N-word, people are going to get mad at me, and then suggested taking away their suggestions. There's reasons why this is so important. For one, the woman in question, who was exposed by Veritas, issued a public statement on Medium. This is not how I expected my Monday to go. She talks about how here they don't take political affiliation into consideration. However, we have an email now confirming they do. Absolutely. And they falsely line people as a way to justify censorship. And they even went so far as to say, take away their suggestions. But more importantly, this individual said Meredith's suggestion. Okay, in the email, he says, why don't we go with Meredith's suggestion of taking away the suggested feature? That means other people within Google have made recommendations to strip recommendations from certain creators based on their politics, wrongly aligning them, of course. This woman, Jen Janai, has made herself now a public figure with this statement, so that's important. However, going back to the Vimeo issue, it looks like now we are seeing, as I mentioned earlier, an emboldening. They're just doing it. I think we are going to see massive moves made against big tech because we're seeing Elizabeth Warren, Maxine Waters, Ted Cruz, Louis Gohmert. We have bipartisan support now for some type of regulation. Maybe they won't be aligned, but they're calling it out. In fact, this woman at Google, in the expose that was taken down, said they should not be broken up because then smaller companies would be tasked with stopping a Trump situation and they don't have the resources. This was a woman at Google directly saying they want to interfere in the elections. So you know what? Elizabeth Warren is correct. In an op-ed published in the New York Times recently, Cory Doctorow, a science fiction writer, said it's a hypothetical future. And he said stripping away the immunity is not the right answer. We need to break them up to create a diverse and robust internet. I believe he may be right. It creates more market competition. And you need to recognize that YouTube is one element within Google, but it's like 5 or 6 different kinds of companies. They host videos for you. They market videos for you. They sell ads for you. They buy ads from advertisers. They do multiple different tasks all rolled into one company. Perhaps that should be broken up. Gmail, GDocs, Google, Alphabet, all of these companies have a disproportionate amount of control over the public forum, the comments, our information. And yes, if they choose to manipulate elections, they can. And we are now, I'm going to say it one more time, confirmation, a leaked email, a whistleblower, and statements from from Google employees. This is happening. I think the most important thing to consider is taking down James O'Keefe's video should remove all doubt. Of course, we've understood this for a long time. There's been circumstantial evidence. But before Pinterest, it was, well, maybe the moderation is just because they violated policies. You'd have people say, hey, they're private platforms. They can do what they want. Okay, that argument is gone. Pinterest stepped forward and said, you know what? Wipe them out. Banned several people and said, we're just going to do it. We're just going to do it. There was still some arguing. How do you explain this? How do you explain an expose on Google staff malfeasance with a whistleblower confirming the details and Google deleting the video? Are you still going to say, but my private platform? Sure. I guess Google's under no obligation to host video that makes them look bad. But then understand how dangerous it is that YouTube has a monopoly on video hosting, period. There are other places to go. Minds.com, for instance, BitChute, and I will once again stress, in no uncertain terms, I have this content is all available on a podcast, okay? You can get it on other platforms. It's still Apple and Google for the most part, but there are some other services I use. The important point is, even if I get taken down from YouTube or Google, I will exist in other ways. Minds.com/Timcast, seriously, as well as BitChute and others. Ted Cruz did some grilling. I want to move on to Louis Gohmert's statement as well. He referenced Veritas, which is, good on him. I think we need to see more, but good on him for bringing this up immediately right when the report broke and challenging someone at Google. The statement issued by Louis Gohmert is also good, but we'll get to the point of Section 230 moving from here. He responded to the undercover video, which has since been deleted from YouTube, removing all doubt as to their censorship policies. and the email now leaked from Veritas. Removing all doubt, they are targeting people for their politics. They're lying about them. They're smearing and slandering them in private. This is libel. And then they strip away access to the platform for political reasons. Louis Gohmert says, this video shows Google's biases are now a threat to a free and fair election, all while they hide behind the immunity given by Congress years ago when they were supposed to be a simple town square, where everyone's voice could be heard without biased results. In fact, Google references a significant role they see themselves fulfilling in the 2020 elections. This discovery should set off alarm bells throughout the country. It is no secret that Google has a political agenda. Multiple brave tech insiders have stepped forward and exposed Google's censorship of content and specialized algorithms. This media giant's social narrative should distress all Americans who value a free and open society. Google should not be deciding whether content is important or trivial, and they most assuredly should not be meddling in our election process. They need their immunity stripped and to be properly pursued by class action lawsuits by those they have knowingly harmed. Interestingly, my suggested views are down. Does that include me? I don't know. My channel is doing really well. Everything's been great. Subs are up, views are up. I can't complain. I'm certainly concerned about manipulating our elections. But whether or not, let's break this up into a few different important discussions. I do not believe YouTube is required to promote my content for me. I'll ask you to do that. As I said earlier, if you think this content deserves to be seen, share it on social media. If you're not willing to do that, then I don't deserve to have anyone listen to what I say. If one person says, I am not going to share your content, well, then so be it. This is the marketplace. This is how business works. If I opened a pizza shop and nobody told their friends I had good pizza, well, maybe I should make better pizza. But I will recognize that as a monopoly, they are dominating the market and making it much more difficult for competitors. They're buying up competitors. They're suppressing competitors. I'm talking about big tech in general. And thus, there is now a problem if they aren't going to suggest fairly. While I can rely on suggestions from you guys and shares, we're going up against the Google machine, which is going to be recommending biased content. Now, let's make bring up another really important point, which was brought up by Ted Cruz. He asked, to this woman at Google, do you know how much money Google employees, donated to Hillary Clinton? It was like over $1 million, like $1.3 million. I'm getting the number wrong, but something like that. A not unsubstantial amount, a lot of money. How many Google employees donated to Trump? I'm sorry, how much money from Google employees made its way to Trump? The answer is 0. The bias exists. We have the emails, we have the employee statements, but I want to stress, please understand me when I say, YouTube taking down Veritas's video. I don't care if you don't like them. I don't care if you don't trust them. This was information exposing malfeasance at a massive international corporation with no allegiance to the U.S. that is imposing its will on the U.S. and then deleted a critic from its platform. Fine, it's their platform. But that means because they've dominated the ad space, the ad market, they have destroyed independent and local journalism. They will not allow you to challenge their power, period. Local journalists have been screaming for a while that Google has harmed them. It's true. Google and Facebook have dominated the ad market. Now, I'm not going to blame them necessarily. It's technological advancement. But this means they do need to be broken up if they're going to be censoring this stuff. If they want to act like the arbiters of truth, which they claim to be, if this woman, she says explicitly, Trump voters do not agree with my view of fairness, too bad. I'm adding the too bad part. She said that and then goes on to express that basically it doesn't matter. We're going to do this anyway. She says they're going to reject congressional hearings. They're not going to change their mind and they reject being broken up. This is authoritarianism. This is technocratic authoritarianism. And at some point, we need to break them up. Elizabeth Warren agrees. We now need some people on the right, which I'm sure there's a lot of that agree. Antitrust action, plain and simple. So I'll move on now and highlight just a few other things. For one of the things that worries me greatly. Washington Times. Project Veritas video targeting Google pulled by YouTube after privacy complaints. Well, as I stated earlier, whose privacy complaint? That woman? She works for Google. They called it a third-party complaint. Sure, I guess. Her acting as an individual, fine. But here's the thing. Do a search for news articles about this. You'll find the Washington Times. You'll find conservative outlets. Will you find the New York Times? Will you find Vox or BuzzFeed? At least for now, the answer is no. I haven't found any of them to be reporting on this. There was one New York Times employee, Charlie Warzel, I believe, who tweeted about this and said, This is just algorithmic bias, correcting. They're wrong. It's not political bias. A woman on camera at Google saying we're going to prevent a Trump situation, essentially saying something to that effect, he says was not political bias. I got to say, it's really alarming. It's very worrying that we're seeing two worlds being created. As Scott Adams said, same screen, two different movies. The media on the left will not cover this. Maybe they will. I don't want to say they absolutely won't. The story has gotten so big, it may now break out into the open. I saw the Daily Beast published a story on the Google employee's statement, but not the actual expose. This is how the game will be played. All that matters is that you have a media that is complicit in defending big tech. Look, Elizabeth Warren called him out. Ocasio-Cortez called out the big tech surveillance. It's a bipartisan issue, but the media is doubling down. Why? Why? I'm on YouTube. I make my revenue on YouTube, and I have no problem calling them out and saying, break them up. Break them up, even if it means my business gets hurt. I don't care. This is about the betterment of democracy and our society and civilization. Again, I'm not saying I know that breaking them up is the right thing to do. Cory Doctorow published an op-ed in the New York Times. I lean in that direction. We've seen Democrats and Republicans alike make statements like this, but something needs to be done. When I went on Joe Rogan podcast with Jack Dorsey, we had an interesting conversation about how they were dominating the public town square, the Commons. But we're at a point now where, plain and simple, you challenge them, you will be banned. Period. So I guess I could prattle on this forever, but I'll make a few points. Another point, I know I said that. The final point I want to make, because I'm a bit flustered by all this, admittedly. Veritas sent a cease and desist to Pinterest, as according to Town Hall. My understanding, based on information I've received, is that Pinterest is sending their lawyers after me, as well as Veritas, to get our videos taken down. That may be the end of it. They did. My understanding, and I'll just say it, the woman who sent the information, who made these requests to have our content deleted, at least mine, deleted her social media. Interestingly, just purged everything after this request went through. I did a video on Pinterest censorship, public information. The video was taken down by YouTube. YouTube was acting in the defense of another Silicon Valley company to prevent the censorship from coming out. I can't say why. What I can say is this. For the longest time, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, whatever. Less so Amazon, but still. These companies have said they're not biased politically. And it's been hard to prove it. But Pinterest kind of proved it. It was the dam breaking. And when Pinterest said, you know what, screw it, we're going to ban them anyway, that was them straight up saying, your cover's blown. You can argue all day and night. We think the censorship is there. We've seen the evidence. You've denied it, but now you've done this, and now it's basically definitive. What was their response? Pinterest sent lawyers to Google, and Google complied, taking down my political commentary on publicly available information. That should send alarm bells to everyone. That YouTube will decide, if you're not newsworthy, we'll delete you because we can. And now here we are. Following a watershed moment with Pinterest, James O'Keefe's nearly a million views on this video, deleted. Did he do anything wrong? No. Did he break any rules? He did not. One-party consent in California, he was in his right to record the woman, and he was exposing corporate malfeasance. And Google employees discussing manipulating our elections. Period. And now he's published an email confirmation. It's political, plain and simple. Will Congress act? Will the Senate? I have no idea. But if they don't, Republicans deserve to lose. I tweeted this out. I'll say it again. Not that they should lose, not that it's good or bad, but if you don't take action against big tech manipulating elections, well then why should you win? Why? If you're not going to do anything about it now. You know what? Maybe they can't. Maybe it's too late. Maybe Google is doing this now because they know they'll get away with it. Because the fourth estate, the media in this country, isn't going to bring this up. They're not going to say it's disconcerting that a company that's monopolized the video space is now suppressing political commentary and deleting things that are damaging to them, exposing their corruption. No one will say it. So